All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Casa Grande's March 21st study session. I think the first item on the agenda tonight is our Streetscape project, so Planning and Development Department. Mr. Horn, you're going to give us the update, or part of it?
Yeah, good evening, Council, Mayor. I want to start off by saying I think TCU should have had a foul shot at the end of that game last night. So, that was clearly a foul. We're going to introduce
We're sorry. We're sorry.
We're going to introduce the Florence Boulevard Streetscape project. Last year, City Council approved the CIP, including the contract for design services with our consultant J2 Design. Since that time, our consultant's been working on the background information and base mapping information for the project, and tonight is going to be the introductory kickoff for the actual design for the project. We're going to touch base on design elements and design schedule for the project, including the stakeholder process and proposed key dates. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our consultant, J2, and Jeff Velasquez and Kurt Monte of J2 Design.
Yeah, they showed me. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jeff Velasquez. I'm a principal landscape architect with J2 Design. We're a local small business here in the Phoenix-Tempe border, and we're excited to be working with you. With me is Kurt Monti, landscape architect. Project manager will run you through the remainder of the slides. We have worked with the city in the past, Carr McNatt, Pier Park Master Plan, Grande Sports World, and Florence Street downtown in years past. So we've been around over the past 20 years working with you, and we appreciate the opportunity to work on this streetscape master plan and design. One of the things that is very important to us, and our firm specializes in streetscape, downtown redevelopment, parks and rec, master planning and design. So we have engineers and landscape architects on board. One of the things that's very important to us, if you've been through these slides at all, is really building on the unique aspects of the communities that we work with, and we work throughout the state, but never bringing something from one community over to another just to copy it. So it's always about the history, the culture, really creating a sense of place that is a destination for the community that we're working in. So far, we've been working with Joseph and Paul on looking at the research and the history and the background of the city of Casa Grande, and it's a rich history. We won't go into all of the details here, but building on that history is something that we think could really play into the streetscape from I-10 all the way over to Pinell. What we'd like to do is just kind of give you a brief overview of who we are as a firm in terms of a couple of the projects, real briefly, that we've done recently in terms of streetscape. So one of them is the downtown Tolleson redevelopment project in the West Valley of Phoenix, community of about 7,000 people. They did 1 mile of streetscape master plan, and we did a design. So we did some roadway right sizing, went 5 lanes to 3, custom paving, artwork, Wi-Fi speakers, custom shade structures, and water features, and really kind of built that design based on their culture, their heritage, and some of the heavy Latino Hispanic culture there. Downtown Chandler's redevelopment, we worked on Arizona Avenues Phase 1 and 2 in downtown Chandler, where I live up the freeway here. Since that's turned into Washington Street, multiple phases and multiple downtown phases. But similarly, it was widened sidewalks, really creating that vibrant kind of pedestrian destination. And all of these projects on these streetscapes, especially if it involves corridor areas and downtowns, is really about long-term economic sustainability. We believe in Arizona first and really building communities and building up these corridors. So downtown Chandler had lots of custom light fixtures, art systems, really reflecting the community. Another project is not really a downtown, but it's a streetscape corridor theme, and that's the Fiesta District Improvements near MCC. That is a 1.5 mile, kind of more of a LID or sustainable environmental design. So we have roadway right sizing that went from 7 lanes to 5, including the middle turn lane. There was stormwater harvesting, which is stormwater kind of bioswales on either side of the roadway. Multi-use path system, custom shade structures, signage and custom lighting systems, and water features. We even wrapped the poles there with SRP and did some really vibrant kind of glass, recycled glass monuments. Several other projects, we could talk probably for hours about different things, but most notably downtown Florence here, Casa Grande. Kurt worked on that project. P83, Western Power Line, downtown Gilbert, and Water Tower Plaza are some of the others that we've worked on. But we're here to give you our commitment that we're going to kind of really drill down, get to the history, the culture, and really kind of bring, with your staff, kind of a vibrant sense to the streetscape along Florence. So we're real excited to be here. And with that, I will turn it over to Kurt, our project manager.
Thanks, Jeff. So on this first slide, I'd like to kind of go over the corridor. I know a lot of you are very familiar with this corridor of Florence Boulevard, but we're starting our project on the west end at Pinnell Avenue and going to the I-10 freeway on here. And through discussions with city staff, we've kind of broken it out into 3 different sections. We have the downtown area, we have the midtown, and then the freeway area. And within all of these corridors, we'll be looking at the elements that you see on the screen of, the right-of-way, what's the right-of-way going to be, aesthetic theming, much to like what Jeff was mentioning, of, taking that history, taking the ideas from the council and from city staff and residents through the stakeholder meetings. We'll be looking at lighting, the shade, and then median treatments also throughout the corridor. And also the different types of hardscapes and then seating areas that we have. So the next slide here is just kind of, it's an enlargement of the areas. So the first one, again, is the downtown streetscape. So on the left-hand side at Pinnell, we have a primary, what we're calling a primary gateway. That would be kind of one of those entry features that you saw on one of the previous slides. And we'd really like to tie that back into the history and then also the current project that was just finished at the railroad bridge, at the underpass there. So we'd like to kind of tie those together so we have a nice entry, because that's kind of the beginning too, and you had a really nice enhancement project there, and we want to continue that through to Pinnell and then down through the downtown streetscape zone. Some of the other items on here, we had the secondary gateways. Those would be a little bit smaller, kind of bringing people into the downtown area. And, that will be throughout the corridor that we can have that and keep them coming down towards the businesses and the downtown area. We have a couple of bump out areas that we're just kind of looking at, maybe mid-block crossings, something like that, just to kind of give a nice pedestrian feel as they can cross those areas. And in the Midtown Streetscape Zone, this area here, we really want to connect the businesses, to the area or to the streetscape. So we want to look at, how they can get sidewalks to them, maybe make patio areas for the businesses, for the restaurants in that area. And we'd also have, bump outs and mid-block crossings in this area. And the number 4, we're connecting improvements and the intersecting streets. So those would be enhanced so people really know which location they're at and which zone they're in. But we really want to connect with the landscape and the adjacent business owners in this area. So when we have stakeholder meetings, that's going to be one of the things that we're going to ask and get into them. Yes, sir.
Florence Street and Florence Boulevard, the Pinnell Avenue goes right in across the tracks. Mm-hmm. It peters out, but it's right by where South School is. It's the same road as Pinnell Avenue, except it's on the south side of the tracks.
Okay.
And there's a lot of things you could work on the south side.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at that and maybe have a little bit more conversation with you on that and get those locations that you'd like us to take a look at. Sure.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Okay, thank you. So in the third area is the Freeway Streetscape Zone. This is from Arizona to I-10. And this area, right now, it's a lot of green fields in this area. There's a lot of farm fields and such, but this is a big development area. When we're talking with Paul and Joe, that there's a lot of new development coming into this area, and we want to get the streetscape set. So then when those businesses or the subdivisions and the rent to own come in, we want to have them take that streetscape and that enhancement and basically like a guideline for them to go by, that they can then create the corridor, cohesive corridor in that area. And then we also have, the linkages here also at the cross streets and bump outs. And then to really draw people in from I-10 that are passing by, we'd have an entry monument right there at the corner, something really majestic that people could see for a few miles or maybe a couple miles or something, and be able to see that and be able to know, okay, that's my destination. I want to go in that area. And then that whole streetscape theme will draw people towards the corridor and down to the downtown area. So, like Joe mentioned, we've been kind of working with them and going through a little bit of the process. These are just ideas, just photos that we've taken or pulled from the web, and just different types of streetlights. So that's one of the aspects that we're looking at, is the lighting. Is there a cohesive lighting that we can utilize from the downtown area as it goes throughout the corridor, and vice versa? So these, light poles, you can do many things with them nowadays. You put banners on them, you can light them up, and interchanging the banners is nice, for different seasons or different events. And that helps draw people in and know that they're in a certain corridor and that they're on the right direction. Again, here's some streetscape enhancements, some of the hardscape that I was talking about, like that could be utilized at the bump outs. So there's different pavers, different paving patterns. You've seen some of those that Jeff was showing in some of the other projects that we've done. There's different ways to do concrete, if it's colored concrete, similar like what we did in Florence Street. There's many different things and different connections that you can do. The largest photo there has a lot of the elements in it. It has the concrete, then there's paving, pavers, different colors. So it really gives you an idea of the flavor and the vibrant that we'd be looking for in the downtown area and along the corridor. Yes, sir.
There'll be some development right in that area they're talking about. Do you get together where what you're doing fits what they're doing?
In the freeway area zone, or?
On Florence Street, once you cross the tracks, there's an old schoolhouse there. And that road right there where the field is empty, but they plan to build quite a few homes right there.
Okay. Yeah, we can get with Paul and Joe and look into those plans if they're already within the development stage, and go through that with them. So, yes, we can definitely take a look at that.
Yeah.
Good point. So the next item, that we wanted to show is just some different site amenities. From benches, there's multiple different benches that you can do out there that we can look at. Some of the more traditional type, the bike racks, the seat walls, the concrete seat walls. Concrete seat walls can also be used as an art element. You can, like in downtown Chandler, we had the seat walls and the kind of the art plinth, and then they tiled around them. They had an art, RFP, was it, Jeff? Or Arts Commission, yeah. They put out an RFP for artists to decorate those. So, and then, there's festoon lights and, of course, shade. Shade is a large element that we need down here or in the valley and in Arizona, whether it comes from trees or if it's a manufactured shade. So those are some of the items that we're looking at for site amenities. And then the art, kind of what I just mentioned. It really makes a unique place. These are some of the items that we've done, and some photos that we've taken from the web, just to give an idea and to get kind of the artistic juices flowing. Some of these are from downtown Chandler, and then also the downtown in Tullison too. So they kind of had a theme in those. And then there's also a product they call lithocrete that you can do little medallions. That's the one on the far middle, on the far right side, that you can do and, you know, have different elements in that too, in photographs. Signage. Signage, this is what we're kind of talking about with the primary and the secondary. These are, some of these are very large signs, but down to the more directional and wayfinding signs also. But they're all cohesive and they all kind of blend together and take some of the same elements around. So we have, you know, the Fiesta District and the Tullison. So there's many different things that we can do to enhance the area and make it unique to Casa Grande. And then we also wanted to talk about median treatments too. So there's many different things, again, that we can do with median treatments. Like Jeff mentioned, there's the LID. You can do a bioswale in those, have the water from the roadway come into those, like the upper right-hand photo. At the bump outs or the crossings, we could do possibly a Z crossing, they call it, and it's the shaded crossing and things like that. And then also monuments and things to kind of make the whole area cohesive and blend together. So we can do that. And then landscape, of course, will enhance that too. And as Joe mentioned, the project timeline that we're kind of looking at, this is very fluid. We're just kind of looking at different timelines right now. This is our first meeting with the council. It's kind of the introductory one. And that was kind of kicking off our meetings here for the project. So we will be having some also planning and zoning commission meetings. So we'll have those coming up that will give them a presentation similar to like tonight, and they'll hear about the project a little bit more in depth. And then we also want to go out to the stakeholders. That's the residents and the business owners. Those are the people that we really want to get to and get their input. So we make everybody kind of buy in on it, buy in on the project. So we have some of those coming up also that we'll have, and we'll have steering committees. We'll meet with the arts commissions, you know, the downtown area and everybody else that's involved in that. So, and that was our presentation for tonight. So thank you. We appreciate you giving us the opportunity to work in Casa Grande and on the downtown and Florence Boulevard streetscape. So,
Thank you, Kurt.
thank you.
Does council have any questions of Kurt or Jeff? No, this is Florence Boulevard that we're talking about, so
Yes.
we'll look forward to more details.
Yes, yeah, that'll be coming and forthcoming, and we'll have, you know, once we start taking in the information and everything, we'll come back with concepts and be able to present those to you. So we look forward to doing that.
Great. And when you said entrance on the railroad, there's also an entrance at I-10, right? So we're talking both those.
That's correct. Yeah, it would be like a
for
book.
miles,
Yeah,
he said, Mayor.
it'd be a bookend. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'd bookend the project, so
Okay.
we could do that. Yes. sir.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody
Thank
else
you,
have
Mayor.
any questions, comments?
I,
Yeah, go
so
ahead,
I
Lisa.
see that you have let's see, the stakeholder meetings.
Yes, sure.
Coming up in April, right?
Oh,
Is that when it is?
I went to
So
the wrong
what type of outreach and who are those stakeholders that you're going to have participate?
The stakeholders?
Yeah,
That would be the business owners,
Okay.
the property owners, the downtown Main Street.
okay.
Let's see, I know I'm forgetting somebody. The Arts
Okay.
Commission. Was there somebody? Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. That's the one I was missing. Yep.
Perfect. And are you getting a pretty good response? Have you already sent out notices and invitations? Do you feel you're getting a pretty good response?
We haven't sent those out yet, but that's coming up.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
so our first meeting that we're going to have with the stakeholders is just a smaller group.
Okay.
And then the next one will be the larger one. So our first one, that's the steering committee, That'll be a little bit smaller group at that time, but then we'll open it up and we'll get all the business owners and property owners
Okay.
in that, involved in that.
And will you get maybe the youth commission or some type of, artist or something from the high schools or something to get
I
some
think-
youth participation?
Yes, I think that would be a great, another great stakeholder to bring in is
Right,
the
okay.
youth, because they will be the
They'll
ones.
they'll be around
growing up,
implementing, right?
yes.
And can you just give us an idea, so of course, it's beautiful, I love the ideas, and it's so exciting to see that Florence Boulevard can possibly look like this. So this is obviously a concept, a design, so implementation, so what happens after this? With these other cities? I'm sure it takes years to implement many of these, but what is the normal process after this?
After this, then, I don't know, actually, if I can get Jeff Velasquez up here, I'll have him kind of describe it, if you would. A little bit better, because he's gone
Okay.
through those more than I have, sure. Oh, and Paul, you sneaking up.
Paul might be able to answer that question.
Right,
So J2, their contract requires them after we complete the design, the final product they have to give us is called a design concept report, which is not construction drawings, but it's kind of the next level. This CIP is actually funded for this fiscal year for $1 million, I think 1.1 million. The design is not going to take that. We're going to have probably 900,000 left after J2 gets done with their DCR. Our next step will actually be to do an RFQ for actual
Design build.
civil design, construction drawings,
Design build.
and we'll get those done, and then we're going to start on one of these phases. We have to prioritize. My suggestion right now is we would start with the downtown phase. But it's really important for us to have the design in place so when those developments happen on the east side of the corridor by the interstate, that those new businesses can pick up our landscape design and whatever design theme we have and implement it on their private property as they do their front landscaping along their streetscapes. In the CIP project, I think I've proposed a funding of about $1 million a year to complete the project, right?
Okay.
And the funding source is out of the APS Community Enhancement Fund. That's the funding source that I've asked that the CIP be funded out of. So we don't think this is going to be something to put on the shelf. Our goal is to complete the design and build the project.
perfect. And Paul and I don't want to jump the gun because, of course, beggars can't be choosers here, but, Pinal.
Yes.
So just to get, the design portion on Pinal, when do you see that we can at least just get that portion?
So our obstacle there is that Pinel's a state highway.
Right.
And so now we have to involve ADOT. So that's a whole different animal. Maybe once we get things started on Florence and ADOT likes what we're doing and says, yeah, that looks good, then we can work with them on working on Pinel.
Right.
I agree with you. I would love to do something on Pinel
Right,
as well.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Matt?
But yeah, speaking of that, Lisa, also maybe we can take the concept, hopefully the entry point, we can use that theme on Pinal and other places too to tie it together. And I know on the east end, it makes sense to do that towards the end of it because that's still developing, but to have the plans, I like that. And maybe we can work on that entry point
Yes.
sooner rather than later because that's a big part, as people drive by the freeway.
Right.
To
Your
get
sense
them
of
to come
arrival.
in, yeah.
So council's already approved another CIP for us in this fiscal year, which is the entryway signage at all our major entryways, right? Pinal, Gila Bend Highway, down south on Choo Choo Highway, every major entry point. Staff elected to let this project run a little bit to kind of figure out what the design's going to kind of
so they're
shake out.
cohesive, right?
And then we can go ahead and start working on the design for the other entryways as well. So that's definitely something we're working on. And you've already approved the funding.
Yeah, and that funding is not part of the million that you're talking about?
No, it's a separate 100,000. Yes.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Powell.
The center of Florence, at one point in time, several years ago, they were going to put solid dividers all the way down, and the mayor at that time, which wasn't you, said
Before
that
me.
he'd go down fighting if they did that, But do you do any of that? Do you do anything in the street itself, or is it just basically best on the sides?
They do it all over.
Yeah, no, I think we do it on the sides, and
In the middle.
we haven't really looked at it completely because
Yeah,
we want to
that's
do
something
traffic counts and things like that, but we would look at putting medians
Yeah.
in the area too, along the corridor.
Just control the traffic and
So, yeah, we just need to make sure that we
people walking across
connect the
the road.
businesses and everybody has their way in and way out.
walking in the middle of the road. All right, thank you, Kurt.
Sure, thank you. Thank you,
Any
Mayor and
comments,
Council.
questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Joe. All right, Larry, I think next item is actually Finance Department, but it's our general obligation bond presentation.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to bring back the discussion on a potential general obligation bond questions to our voters in November. The council may remember a month ago, staff introduced during an update of our capital improvement program for fiscal year '22, we introduced a number of projects that we felt that were either in the pipeline in fiscal year '23 and/or would in fact be within our 5-year period, and recommended approximately, at least at that meeting, $115 million worth of potential projects that we felt could be considered by our voters and funded through general obligation bonds. During that meeting, the mayor and council asked that I add a project that would be Treckle Road from McCartney Road to Val Vista to the list. And so when we begin to evaluate a potential cost of that, we found that what we would be looking at is roughly $125 million adding that additional project. And so the mayor and council directed staff to begin to work with our financial advisors and financing team to put together a potential bond question, or a series of bond questions. And so tonight, what we'd like to do is introduce what a typical bond programming package might look like for the $125 million. We also want to talk a little bit about the proposed secondary property tax levies or rates that would be charged in those particular scenarios. And in order to do that, I need someone that is much smarter than me when it comes to bond financing. And so we've got Mr. Nick Dodd here this evening from Piper Sandler, who's been working with the city on a number of transactions for the organization. And so I'm going to be handing the baton to Mr. Dodd here in a second, Mr. Mayor, and let him go through the PowerPoint that was introduced as part of the council packet. And then when he's done, really what I'd like to do is focus on the list of projects and our proposed timeline for those projects, and get council's perspective of whether or not that the timing of those projects is in alignment with what your expectations may be. So with that, Nick, if I can turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Nick Dodd. I'm with Piper Sandler, and thank you, Larry, for that introduction. That's volume. We'll get it in a second. There you go. Larry said I was smart and can work a remote control. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's a pleasure to be here this evening. We've worked with Larry and the city staff to prepare the materials. So just a quick overview, and the presentation kind of builds on itself, and there's some things you have to keep in mind when you seek voter approval. So general obligation bonds require an election. The city in the mid-2000s had a fairly small, relatively speaking, but big for the city at the time, GO election. You sold bonds in 2008, 2009, and then again in 2016 when you sold kind of the final series, and you also refinanced all of the existing bonds at the time. Requires an election. And if approved by the voters, you can levy a property tax that's unlimited with regards to the amount of taxes or the rate, even if you have a targeted rate. If values declined and you had to raise the rate above the target, you could be forced to do so. Obviously, you could supplement those property tax revenues with other resources if you were really committed to, say, maintaining a certain tax rate in the event of declining property values. Those revenues could essentially be anything legally available, so excise taxes, HERF revenues to the extent they were for transportation projects, development impact fees or utility revenues to the extent you improved, in your guys' case, a wastewater project. There are some debt capacity limits. It's essentially a 26% limit, so 26% of your assessed value is the amount of bonds you can have outstanding. Within that 26% limit, there's 20% for a number of projects, which is very broad, includes open space parks, public safety, recreational facilities, transportation, water, wastewater, lighting. Anything that doesn't fit into that category would then fit into a 6% category. The most obvious or notable that we come across a lot of the times would be, say, a city hall. Or city hall type improvements would generally fall into the 6% category. And we'll show you those calculations in just a second. So the first thing that's really important is when you move forward with a GeoBond election, as you all know, you've probably received over the years from the school districts and the community colleges voter information pamphlets. And you are required to prepare one if you chose to move forward. And one of the requirements is when you make assumptions with regards to assessed valuation, you can only assume future years grow by what the 10-year average was. So you can see on this schedule here, we've shown you going back a number of years, the growth in valuation. And just as a kind of a real quick refresher, net assessed full cash value, that's really real value. It's the most representative market. Assessed value is how Arizona deals with property taxes, and you apply it to the property tax rules. And so full cash value can grow by any amount, any percent. It really is representative market. There are limits on how much assessed value can grow. Existing property owners can't see their assessed value grow by more than 5% in any year. And so with no new growth, the city could really only grow by 5%. Obviously, if you look at this last year, you grew by 9% on the assessed value. So a lot of the existing property values saw increases up to 5%, and then you added a lot of additional new projects onto the tax rolls, which gets you to the 9%. You can also see there, that's why in a lot of years, the limited assessed value is smaller because there's just some limits on how much it can grow by. We've also shown what the 5-year average was, and that'll lead into some of the scenarios because we're trying to help you guys understand different assumptions around growth and what that means for the property tax rate. I always tell people I'm a visual learner, so I just had a chart in here that shows the same data, but in lines and kind of colors. But it just shows, obviously, the value for the last really 7 or 8 years has been growing pretty significantly in the last couple of years. Obviously, one of the other factors we have to think about is existing debt. So the city right now has $27.5 million in bonds that are outstanding. As I noted, they were sold in kind of 3 tranches. You've done a nice job of refinancing the debt back in 2016 to lower, the rates that are paid and the interest that's paid. The city may in the future have an opportunity to refinance again, but you won't get that opportunity until 2026. That's the gray shading kind of shows the bonds that could potentially be refinanced in the future. So for right now, we just have to kind of work around the existing debt service for the bonds that are currently outstanding. So if you break down that $27 million, every time you sell bonds, you will make an allocation between that 6% limit and the 20% limit. And so most of the bonds that the city issued from the prior election were allocated to the 20% based on the types of projects they were. There was a small portion that was allocated to the 6%, and so you can see here is the allocation of the $27 million between those two debt limits. And then you can see we've calculated your existing capacity, so that's the current valuation times the respective percentages less the outstanding debt. And you can see right now you have approximately about $113 or $114 million in unused bonding capacity. One question that comes up is you can seek authorization for more than your debt limit would allow today. You could seek $500 million. I don't know if you guys remember when Central Arizona College in '08, I think, sought $500 million, and it failed. They didn't have the capacity at the time. They thought as they grew into it, they would sell those bonds. The models we've done with just pretty reasonable growth and your bond repayment, you would never, under the models that are in here, you would never run up against your capacity limit. So the assumption is that you'd be able to do your CIP over the next 5 years if the bonds were approved by the voters, and with a little bit of growth and the pay down on the existing debt, you would be within the limits at all times. So now kind of to high-level summary of assumptions, this was the conversation staff had with us, and that really then went into building the scenarios that you'll see. So we started with $125 million in bonds, and we assumed that you would seek an election in November of this year. The bonds would be sold pretty quickly over a period of 5 to 6 years, and that the tax rate for the secondary property tax or for GO bonds within the city would be capped at $1.50. And so that starts to provide some of the, the kind of the bookends, if you will. We do have several different scenarios with regards to assumptions on assessed valuation growth, and that's really just more for you as policymakers to think about how you would view if growth was faster. You could let the tax rate go down. You could accelerate projects if you had the bandwidth to do it. You could sell bonds quicker than you otherwise had planned to. So you would have some options, obviously, as you go through that. And we do identify the various projects, which I know Mr. Raines got feedback from you on, so I think that'll be familiar. So for scenario one, we assume that 10-year average, and this is important because that's what would go in the voter information pamphlet. State statute, of course, isn't super clear other than you have to use the 10-year average. It doesn't preclude you from doing other scenarios. However, our experience over the years is that gets confusing. And so you're probably best off just to show what's statutorily required. And then if you were to move forward, the city would probably want to consider some type of committee to promote the bonds within the community and maybe create signs and yard. And through that community and community outreach, you could really tell the story, which is this is what we were required to do. This is the worst case scenario, but we think we would actually come in at a different level of tax rate. Scenario two was the only change in all three scenarios is our assumptions on growth and assessed value. We didn't change how much bonds were sold or when they were sold. We just wanted to really help you guys understand the impact of those changes in assessed value. Obviously, if you look back on a few slides, you did have a couple years of negative growth, and to think that Casa Grande had negative growth, given everything that's going on right now, is probably hard to fathom those days. And so the 10-year still picks up some of that. And so obviously moving forward, the assumption is you're probably not going to have negative growth in the near term, given everything that's going on in the city. So scenario two was the 5-year average, which was 5.5%, probably a little maybe closer to what might be reasonable. And then the third scenario was just simply an even more conservative. We just essentially assumed 1 year of 9% growth, similar to what you just experienced, 2 years of 5% growth, and then we went back to the 2.75%. So you get to an average rate of about 3.2% during that time period. So I'll apologize now if you remember. If you didn't remember me, you do now, because I put up a slide with so many numbers and they're super small. But moving from left to right, we have assessed valuation on the left-hand side. You can then see the percentage growth, so that would be consistent with either historically what we had shared or what those future years were. The existing debt is the city's current 2016 bonds. And then we calculate what the tax rate for just those bonds would be. We then layer in, and the blue shaded numbers are kind of the amounts of principal that would be repaid each year. And so you can see in this model, there are 6 different bond series sold essentially every year. And they were sold to tie to expectations with regards to when the capital projects would be ready to go. And in total, you can see that it averages it totals 125 million. For this scenario, and we do summarize this, in scenario 1, your average tax rate was $1.42, and the maximum tax rate was $1.49. So you can see at that 2.75% growth, 125 million, and that particular time period is pretty much the max. Frankly, if the growth rate was a little bit lower, we would have to probably push out bonds or say we couldn't sell that many if the $1.50 cap was in fact, the hard limit. So I'm going to keep it on the summary page just for a minute because the detailed slides really are just the differences in assessed valuation growth. And then we have some charts which I think really help highlight it too. So for scenario 2, when you go to a 5.5% growth on the assessed value, you can see your average tax rate goes down to $1.06, and the maximum tax rate comes down a little bit to $1.46. The reason the maximum tax rate doesn't come down as much is because we hit that really fast because we sell that first bond sale. You would take your tax rate up almost immediately, and then it would kind of plateau there for a long period of time. And then depending on what property values did, it would stay at that level or it could decline over time. For scenario 3, this is the 3.2% growth. You can see the average tax rate gets down to $1.29, and the maximum tax rate is, once again, $1.46. So here we are with a graph now to present. So the blue boxes, that's your existing debt. We've kind of talked about that. Nothing we can really do about that. So you can see we're structuring the new bonds on top of it, and the new bonds, it's both the principal and the interest that would be repaid to the investors. You can see it kind of peaks out there in 2035, and that's really where your existing bonds then kind of are almost paid off and step down. And you could see that then the overall debt service would in fact step down, but we would keep the tax rate up as we expect to sell additional bonds in the future. So you can see that shows that this is both the assumption for a primary rate of $1.15 and a secondary rate not to exceed $1.50. You would be just above the $2.50 there for really the next 22 years, and then eventually it would decline as the bonds started to be paid down. Scenario 2, once again, everything's the same, just the difference in assessed valuation. So the gold line here, this represents the tax rate. So you can really start to see that growth of 5.5% versus the 2.75. You can see, even though the debt service stayed exactly the same, the tax rate really starts to come down. And that's where, as policymakers in the future, you would have those decisions to make. Do we accelerate a capital project and maybe keep the tax rate up? Or do we just let the tax rate go down and stay on the planned issuance path and the CIP you had thought about? And the reality is you won't know that until you get to those years and you start to see some of that growth come in. Obviously, 2, you're expecting to issue the bonds in the next 5 to 6 years. So once you've made some of those initial decisions, the tax rate will be really what it is, but for maybe some refinancing opportunities. Finally, scenario 3, this was just the slightly lower average tax rate with the, just about 3.2% average growth. You can see the tax rate comes in just under the $2.50, really just showing that slightly lower secondary property tax rate. Page 14, these are the identified capital projects. Laid out obviously by project name, and then the amounts for each project, and when they were either fully or partially funded, obviously then corresponds with the bond program and the detailed issuance. You saw each of those years for those 6 years. And so I guess with that, I'll stop, and obviously there may be questions for staff or questions for me, but I'll pause here.
Questions, anyone?
Can you go back one slide, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
So these are the projects.
So, yeah, looking over these projects, and we've run into this before with different elections, will we be locked in to these projects? Or that's just the goal? And what we found out too is if we put this price on it today and something strange happens, like as it has, are we locked into that price for that project, or can we adjust accordingly?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Herman, a couple of responses there to your questions. Number one is that we as staff essentially put these projects in a timeline to match the bonding program that ultimately had been established at that, what we consider to be targeted rate of $1.50 cap, if you will. And so certainly there is some, if the council would like to discuss some changes around the timing of these projects this evening, we can do so. But to answer your question specifically, these projects, if approved by the voters, these projects can essentially be done at any time. Once approved, you do not lose your capacity. And a good example of that is our recreation center. If you recall, and I want to tie in that to the cap that we've talked about tonight of $1.50. If you recall, when we took the 2006 package to the voters, it was 5 years worth of projects. We were going to essentially do one project a year, and the commitment that was the direction that we received by the mayor and council is that we wanted to build a bond programming around the $1.50 tax rate. And as many of you know, a couple of those projects got delayed primarily because of the change of the economy, and so essentially that debt could be issued when the project is ready to move forward. So does that answer that particular question? As far as the question specifically about the cost of a project versus what we actually are asking for approval from our voters for in a project, this would be the maximum amount that we can issue in GO bonds. And so, for example, if we had a project, and again, I'll use the 2006 bond issuance, our Vista Grande Library partnership with the school district, we had asked for $4 million. We ended up spending $3 million. So we did not issue $1 million worth of debt. We issued $3 million. And so, again, saving that all impacts your tax levy that you're charging in secondary taxes. But you do have those occasions where a project costs you more when you perhaps depending on timing of when you do that project. Essentially what would transpire in those cases is we would come up with other financing to fill the variance between what we issued in bond debt and ultimately what the project cost might be.
Okay, and then another thing that we kind of went over pretty quickly is also other funding mechanisms for this, not just the property tax. Like one that's easy for me to comprehend is our community trail budget. So we budgeted about half million a year.
Today we're budgeting $500,000 a year. Yes.
And I'm hearing from the community that they want more trails faster.
That's right.
So this is one way, because that $500,000 essentially we already have budgeted, we could use to make these payments to get the projects done sooner, and then make the payments and then pay off the project. Is that a fair assumption?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilmember Herman, absolutely correct. It is a fair assumption, and moreover, it's part of the reason why staff recommended community trails. And to give everybody a context of that, we've got about $500,000 that we generate off of a designated tax, and we've been somewhat balancing the use of those funds annually. They're an operational revenue between building trails as well as updating various parks around the community. And so what it does is gives us more flexibility. And as you can see in this proposal, it's allocating $1 million a year specifically to trails. If the mayor and council elected to put the $500,000, a full amount into that and not do any parks that year, you can elect to do that during the budget process. If you wanted to split it with park renovations, it gives us more flexibility on our operational revenue that we've been allocating to the work that we've been doing. But as you can tell, it's a small segment every year.
Yeah, and also like widening some of the roads that are not congruent right now, for lack of a better. But we could use development impact fees, build them now, and then when the developer comes in, we can use that, correct?
Essentially, what we would, one of the reasons that we've added some roadway projects to this particular bond package or bond question is to essentially accelerate, meaning that at the current rate of growth, we are not collecting enough development impact fees to meet all of the demands in the community. And so, but to your specific question, yes, we could essentially accelerate with our development impact fees any type of project that qualifies under our study for development impact fees. And essentially, when the developer would build the homes, we would replenish that funding. In this particular case, what this would do is that when we updated our study, if these would be approved by the voters and that work was done, as we updated the study, in essence, what that would likely do is reduce the amount of development impact fee that may be coming in the future.
Mr. Powell?
Larry, on Chuckle Road, you've got improvements for Rodeo and McCartney, $5 million. Is that going to finish that off? Are they going to go further, or is that pretty well do the job?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Mayor Pro Tem Powell, what we've done is broken this up into two segments. Staff had recommended to complete that area on Treckle between Rodeo Road and McCartney. So that's the $5 million segment.
Okay.
And after the meeting where we presented a month ago, we ultimately added on Treckle Road from McCartney to Val Vista.
Val Vista. That's this.
So it would take we would essentially end up with some level of roadway infrastructure from Rodeo all the way to Val
Just under a
Vista
mile.
along the Treckle corridor.
The Treckle then would go all the way up to
All the way to Val Vista.
Right.
Yeah, that would be ideal. That'd be a route through town and it's centered. Really good.
Lisa?
Yeah, and that's what I want to talk about, because initially we were going to seek 115, then of course added that 10 million. And in your presentation, you mentioned that we have $114,000 million in unbounded capacity, but we can seek more. So this, now that we've gone up to 125 million, that's not going to be a problem for us to, is that what you were talking about, that we?
Yes.
So we're going to be okay by asking for 10 million more, even though we're unbounded capacity for 114?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that's correct. You could seek 150 million, and you could sell as much bonds as you were comfortable,
Okay.
up to the $1.50 cap based on property values. It would only be at some point in the future, if the growth didn't keep pace, that you could potentially be at your 26% limit.
Got it.
At which point you would have to pause until you had additional growth on the assessed value.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Jeff.
Just favorable comments. The Ed Hooper Park that they were looking at, 4 million, 10 million, 1 million. The mayor and I were just speaking, and they've got a lot of acreage. How much is it?
160.
160, and that can certainly be transferred into an ideal park.
Regional park.
And as it runs east, or west, it will run in eventually to federal land, which we could probably get a hold of if we were going to use it, but
Jeff, you had a comment?
Yes, sir. On the 12 million in fiscal year '24 and the fiscal year '28 from McCartney to I-10, would you see the 12 million in '24 as improvements from McCartney to Treckle, and then 28 from Treckle to I-10?
Exactly, the segments in the two. And part of the reason for the separation, number one, tying it, we were looking to tie to the bond program that we could maintain at $1.50 cap. But number two is that we anticipate that there'll be some development, and some of that roadway may eventually get built by developers as that transpired. So that was at least the reasoning behind the separation in the years. But 2 segments of roadway, yes.
And do you just not see it as practical to do McCartney to Truckle and Truckle to Rodeo at the same time? It'd be too much?
I wouldn't say that it would be too much, but ultimately what we were attempting to do is find a balance in when we accelerated these projects, and $12 million when you're able to issue 20 to 25 million, you have to you ultimately have to balance that, and that was really the driving force. But again, one of the goals tonight is to get Mayor and Council's perspective on the timing of these projects so that we can ultimately adjust that before we start really working on the next phase, and I'll talk a little more about that in a second. So if there's any changes that the council would like to make to the timing of these projects, really tonight or in the next couple of days would be the time to let staff know that.
Larry, I think you've got to spread it out anyway, so, you've got to make sure that the projects fit where they fit, and I think staff's done a good job here. I personally don't see anything that I would change.
And Mr. Mayor, just one additional comment, and Mr. Dodd referenced it. Obviously, if we continue to experience 9% growth or a growth greater than 2.75% in the upcoming years, we can, in essence, accelerate those bond issuances and accelerate projects even more so. This was done, this was the second item that I wanted some direction on this evening. In 2006, the mayor and council gave staff a directive that you wanted to have a targeted secondary tax rate of $1.50, and so we put together a bond program, a package around that with timing, and because some of those got delayed and the assessed valuation growth changed, we have quite frankly never levied $1.50, right? I think the highest that we've levied is roughly 76 cents per hundred, but I anticipated that you would want to keep that as a targeted tax rate, the $1.50. So everything that we've done this evening ultimately has been based around that as one of the assumptions. Again, if we see tremendous assessed values, we'll have the option to either reduce the tax rate annually and/or to accelerate projects in the future.
Yeah, Larry, I think ultimately, I know we'll talk about this when we maybe get to we're not going to talk about it tonight, but like the voter pamphlet and the information that'll go on it, that we'll have something in that it shows, if our median house price is X, this is how it affects you, Y.
And Mr. Mayor, you're absolutely right, and I've done some calculations just to let the mayor and council know, because that's probably going to be questions that our voters are going to ask, and it is required by statute in the pamphlet. But in 2006, we had run at $1.50 per hundred assessed valuation, and at that point in time, the average assessed value home was assessed at anywhere between $125,000 and $150,000, and those rates would have resulted in about a $200 to $225 tax payment annually. And so today, when you look at what our assessed value of the homes are, it's a little higher than it was in 2006. We don't have the exact number, so we've been running some assumptions at $250,000. And at a $250,000 assessed home, that would be roughly $375 a year that would be paid in secondary taxes. But there's a lot more analysis.
But they're paying some now, right? I mean,
they are paying some now, that is correct.
I'm interested in what the increase would be.
Right, just the variable.
Yeah, the variance.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what the actual number is. It's what is the difference? What's the delta that somebody's paying today versus what they'd pay next year?
You're not paying that much
Absolutely.
more.
Right.
And what about how it affects business property as well, Larry? Is that required in there?
Nick, do you know if we have to, we do? Okay, I would assume so.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you'll be required to show residential, commercial, industrial, and then agricultural. So you have 3 different classifications because they all go on the rolls at different rates.
We keep talking about residential tonight, but I know that those tax rates will vary
business too,
for different types of property.
Right, that's correct.
Mr. Mayor, I did look just real quick in the spreadsheet. When you see the existing debt, you'd see a column to the right of it. Your existing tax rate at the 2.75% for the next few years, while your debt's pretty level and consistent, is about 50 cents, 45 to 50 cents. So it's about a third of the $1.50 already.
Right.
So 2/3 of kind of the total
So about
tax rate.
$125 a year is paying off the existing debt, and $250 would be utilized to pay for new debt.
Okay. Mr. Powell?
I just wanted to compliment Larry on your financial leadership. It's really been a benefit to us, and that's why we didn't let it get you away that time before, so.
Thank you.
This makes you, I just told Lisa, makes you enthusiastic when you look over there and all the different things that could happen as the years come at us, so.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and we appreciate you.
Mayor, I just have one more question.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Do you still anticipate this would be chunked into 4 different?
Thank you for the segue, Councilmember Lavender. That was the third item, and I know I'm running out of time here.
You're okay.
So ultimately, getting the feedback that we have this evening, we bring on the next component of the team, which will be our bond counsel. They have been engaged, but ultimately, what we will be doing is working with Tim Stratton from Gus Rosenfeld and his team to begin to look at drafting the questions. I still believe that there will be multiple questions that will ultimately come before the council to be put on the ballot. We are evaluating today how we consolidate those into multiple questions, whether or not we focus on, like I had presented them in the CIP, downtown, City Hall, roadway, Parks and Rec, fire stations. But it really becomes a very fine art to allow for some flexibility. And as one of the examples, when Mr. Dodd and I were discussing this about a week and a half ago, is do we want to allow some flexibility in the roadway projects? And you brought up McCartney Road tonight, and I think that's a good example. If development ends up essentially building the roadway as part of the infrastructure they have to bring as part of their development, and we've got it specifically tied to McCartney Road, in essence, it could be a stranded capacity that ends up not being utilized. And so we'll be engaging Tim to ultimately ask him to craft some language that allows us to use these proceeds in a more flexible manner, I guess is what I'd say. But I wanted to get council's reaction about that tonight. Where we go from here is that the second meeting in April, the mayor and council will be considering the resolutions along with those questions to put those on the November ballot. So if you're comfortable with us drafting those, and I'll try to get them out even in advance so that you can maybe even have a review of them prior to the meeting, I will ask Nick and Tim and the professional staff to really do so with a desire to add as much flexibility as we can.
But real quick, it would be like probably road for road, right? It wouldn't be
Yes.
road
Yes.
for fire station or fire station.
No, that's
for-
right.
yeah.
If it's roadway improvements that our voters give us the authority, it'll be roadway infrastructure that gets built. I guess just at least one more thing, and I think the mayor may even have a comment he wants to make about some action that took place. We are evaluating this, and I know I've mentioned to the council individually that we understand that the elementary school district may be putting on the November ballot their override as well. And I know the mayor may want to talk a little bit just briefly about just other types of items that may be going onto that ballot.
Yeah, with regard to transportation and the transportation in our community, as you all know, the Supreme Court shut down the legality of the tax that has been collected for the last 4 years. And so there are two questions. Number one is, what are they going to do with the tax money already collected? Separate issue, still to be decided. It will be thrown back to the Superior Court and ADOR, which is the Arizona Department of Revenue. So that's still to be determined. The board today did vote to send a proclamation to the supervisors, asking them to put the revised language on the existing tax back on the ballot. So it will be on the ballot come November.
So ultimately, I know that as we've been talking about timing of this general obligation bond, staff is looking for a year where there would be no other questions on the ballot, but it looks like there will be competing
It's going to be
questions
pretty
as well.
loaded. Thank you, Larry. Anybody else have any other questions? I think you're going to give them a little more update on that information. Okay. All right, seeing none, Thank you. Let's stand.
Thank you.
Let's stand adjourned for 5 minutes, and we'll start up at 7:10. Now I'm going to do it louder.
I think someone Oh, he's such a great guy.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our March 21st City Council meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. It's 7:10. Our first order of business tonight is our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. I think we do them at the same time. We have a representative of the LDS Church here tonight for our invocation, and then please remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this opportunity that we have to meet together as a community, and we're grateful for all the blessings that we have in this great city. And we're grateful for the leaders that serve here. Please bless them that they can continue to do so and be able to lead and guide us. We're mindful of those that are struggling, those that are in need. Help us as a community to come together and know how we can help. Help us to reach out to other sources of assistance as well. We ask thee to bless this nation, that it continues to prosper and continues to be a leader in this world. Help the leaders to guide and lead this nation. Bless us, our individual selves, that we can spend time with our families, learn and grow with them, and provide for our young children. These things we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Would you join me as we pledge allegiance to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for the invocation, and thank you, Mr. Powell.
Absolutely.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the item C1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay. C1 is consider approval of the city council regular meeting minutes from March 7th, 2022 is presented.
Wait a minute, I forgot the roll call. Went right by it. Gloria, please let the roll call show that all members of the council are present.
So noted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Powell. You may go
I
now.
got this down, I can do it again.
You got it, you got it. I looked there.
C1 is to consider the approval of the city council regular meeting minutes from March 7th as presented. C2 is to consider accepting the Casa Grande Charter Committee minutes from February 10th, 2022 for the record. C3 is consider attempting the Casa Grande Planning and Zoning, accepting the Casa Grande Planning and Zoning Commission minutes for February 3rd as recorded for the records. Consider accepting the Casa Grande Youth Commission minutes for February 5th, 2022 for the record. Mayor, that should be it.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes have been approved. Next is item D1, claims against the city.
Mayor McFarland, I move to accept and pay the claims dated March 2nd through 15th, 2022 as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, claims are approved. Next item is our meeting agenda. This is tonight's agenda. Is there any changes from staff? Council members, anyone need to change anything? I want to make one change because I think we have an executive session tonight. So I will move our reports before item M. The reports will be after L6. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, tonight's agenda is approved. Move to the next item, which is consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote of the council. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Is there anything on here that you all want to pull off? Anything from staff? Anything from the members of the public?
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next item on our agenda is item H, which is our public comments. So this is when I will open the floor to anyone in the public or anyone present today to address the council. I would remind you to please state your name, keep your comments to 3 minutes, and the items that you bring up are not on our agenda, so therefore we cannot respond to them, but will give staff direction to follow up at a later time. Is there anyone here who would like to address the council?
Good
John?
evening, Mayor, council members. John McGuire, 5088 West Buckskin Drive in Eloy. So it's been a while since I've seen you in person here, although I have, of course, been following on the many ways I can watch you now electronically, and that's really quite nice, frankly, since I don't have that many needs to come up here anymore, in my view, to voice things. But I did want to take a moment tonight with the items that were in the study session particularly, and thank staff and the council for getting those in front of us. Most of you know that these have been items that were very, very important to me over my years that I was living in Casa Grande, and I still, of course, work here and spend a lot of money here, and I'm happy that those two items are moving forward. It's easy for me to get up here and say, you know, tax yourselves on your property tax rate now, because I won't be paying it. But to mitigate that, I have pledged to, if whatever bonds pass, however much my average would have been if I was a city Casa Grande resident, I'll donate that much every year to the Boys and Girls Club to make sure that people understand that I'm committed to those things that I had advocated for so many years before this. I wish we could have done in tonight's meeting a year ago, because unfortunately interest rates are already considerably higher than they were last year, but it is what it is. They're still historically very low. And I'm going to pile on one more thing for you. As much as the mayor made a very good point, and I understand his position and the PRTA board's position, they're thinking of everybody in the county, and that, you know, it's a different role he's in at that meeting, right? So he needs to make sure he's watching out for what's best for that board that he signed up to be on. And so I understand that. And I hear that we're going to do these bonds, and we have now the elementary school district possibly as well. Two things. First, on the bonds, I think some of the council members were trying to get at tonight that it's important that we, as we're promoting the passage of these, that we make people understand we might not spend it all the way this is. This is just the ability to do it this way if need be. As City Council Manager Rain said, there could be impact fees that cover it, other funds that cover things, lots of ways these can get paid for. But I talked to, all the people I talked to in my group, and believe me, they want this stuff done, to the point where I even asked this weekend, with all the things we just talked about, would you even support another election issue of a city-specific sales tax, even with PRTA, even with the bonds, even if 90% of the people that responded said yes. Let us make the choice of whether we want to approve X, Y, Z. I get it. There's a risk if we start throwing tax after tax on the bond. Some people could say, well, forget it. I'm not going to give you anything. But it's already pretty heavy. Just a consideration. And, I'm getting the people that are willing to pay for this stuff right now. They want these improvements made. And if that means they have to pay for it in advance to save some money in the future and get the benefits of that quality of life now, they seem to be indicating to me, the ones that I talk to, and I only have 3,000 people, and not all of them participate in everything, but I think it's sort of representative of a reasonable chunk of people. So glad to see you all again tonight. Glad we're moving forward on some of these things. I know the mayor's excited about his DMO project tonight as well. So have a great night and good to see everybody.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, then I will close the public comments, and we'll move on to I-1, which is award of contracts. And Paul, this, you, oh, nope, sorry, Kevin, you?
I go by many
Your Public
names.
Works, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Staff recommends that the mayor and city council authorize a contract with Franklin Striping out of Phoenix, Arizona, through Maricopa County contract number 210109-S. And that's for the installation of painted stripes, roadway markings, raised pavement markings, as well as striping obliteration for certain projects throughout the city, in an amount not to exceed $400,481. Staff is requesting authorization to use this Maricopa contract. It's the quickest way for us to get this project contracted. And right now, we're having a real challenge finding contractors that are available to do any projects. So this is a good way for us to move forward, very cost-effective way. The pricing is very competitive in what we've seen in the market so far. And this will take care of striping all the areas throughout the city that we've done our evaluation on and just aren't meeting the reflectivity standards that we try to maintain throughout the city. But I'd also like to identify one project that we're working on, and that's to restripe the intersection at McCartney Road and Treckle Road intersection. If you've driven through there in the mornings and the afternoons, very difficult for cars to make that southbound turning movement from McCartney to Treckle. We're going to restripe that to allow a little extra room for those vehicles and see if that can't help improve that intersection in the interim until we are able to move forward with a construction project in the future to widen that road. We do have adequate funds in our budget, as well as we have got a 15% contingency built into this not to exceed price. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, anyone? All right, thank you, Kevin. Seeing none, I will call for an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3326, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting a proposal from Franklin Striping, Inc. for the annual pavement preservation program, authorizing expenditure of public funds and authorizing execution of a contract with or purchase order to Franklin Striping, Inc. in accordance with the terms submitted to Maricopa County.
Mayor McFarland, I move for approval of ordinance number 3326 as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, move into item Ks, K1, excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. Back on January 3rd, we had a study session that kind of outlined the boards and commissions project update that staff had been working on with the mayor, with Councilmember McBride. And so tonight, we're bringing to you phase 1 of that project. I know you're going to be excited because you get to do 5 ordinances and a resolution. If council doesn't want to hear from me 6 times, I'd like to do 1 presentation, and then you can certainly ask questions on each ordinance. And I assume council is going to be happy with that. So just to remind council, as we started this framework, we kind of had 5 or 6 sort of goals to do. One of those was to increase membership on boards for consistency and participation. One of those was to amend the terms of the boards to use 3 years when we could for consistency. We have some that are 2, some 3, some 4, so we're trying to use 3 for consistency. To disband the boards that have kind of broken up or we don't regularly use. To create new boards to combine duties where they're appropriate. And then we were also going to look at sort of changing the code sections to just sort of update them for best practices and actual practices of the city. So tonight we're bringing 5 of those items to you. The first ordinance that you'll be considering will actually increase the Airport Advisory Board to 7 members to meet the goal that the boards that are logically incapable of doing so would move to 7. As we set these up, we have worked with the clerk's office, and you'll see in a couple of the ordinances that if we're increasing the numbers, that we're putting in essentially the ability to stagger it. The goal with 7 members is to make sure that all of these boards ultimately have 3 on one term, 2 on one term, 2 on one term. So that way you're not losing big chunks of that inability. And so you'll notice that as we kind of do those. The second one is going to be to move the Board of Appeals from 4-year term to a 3-year term. That actually requires a resolution and an ordinance, and you probably don't care why, but it's really because we adopted it as through reference. So we have to do the resolution making the amendment a public record, and then we do the ordinance as well. But again, that's just going to change the Board of Appeals from 4-year terms to 3-year terms. And as part of that, we are working, again, with the clerk's office to try to make sure that we kind of hit those natural terms as we implement these. And council, the mayor, with the approval of council, will be making all the changes as you go through and appoint new members to the boards or reappoint members to the boards. The third ordinance tonight would be to disband the Personnel Advisory Board. And the reason we're doing that is, as council will remember, you amended our personnel policy to move to a hearing officer. So that Personnel Advisory Board, there's no more cases that can come before it. So we'd be moving from that to a hearing officer format, so we're disbanding that. We disbanded the Health Trust Board. We had a self-funded plan for a little while. That has now wrapped up, and so the ordinance there would disband that and move forward on that as well. And also the Clean and Beautiful Advisory Board. We actually haven't done any work, I think, since like 2011 with that board. It had kind of transitioned to staff, and the thought was we might as well close that up. And the next item tonight, we're going to deal with a community services board, and they could discuss that with them as well. The fourth item is to get rid of the library advisory board, the golf course advisory committee, and the Parks and Rec board as it comprises today to form a new community services board. This one's actually been ready and since it's a golf board, teed up for a while. But we've been waiting on that to try to bring it as part of the board process. Some of these boards, like the golf course and the library advisory board, I don't know, I can't remember if library has people now, but we haven't even appointed people the last several years to those boards as we get ready to move them. So even though we're kind of pulling back 3, what's ultimately going to happen is you've got 5 sitting members on the Parks and Advisory Board, and the new Community Services Board would have 7. So there'll be more people that will be involved. And finally, we're doing an ordinance, as we said, to sort of conform to the best practices of the city. And if you've had a chance to look at the ordinance, we're making just a couple of technical changes. For example, our code today says that your members must be an elector of the city. But consistently through the past 20 plus years, that's been read to be resident, even though it says elector. So we're just trying to clean up some of those things. We also took that opportunity, as we discussed in the study session, to add for a provision for a youth membership to be included on the committee. Obviously, anyone 18 or older, capable of voting, capable of being a full member, but for those members under 18, we've given the opportunity for the mayor and council, where it deems appropriate, to appoint a youth member. As we drafted that, if you look at the ordinance, you'll find that we limited those circumstances somewhat. So for example, if the board is sitting in a quasi-judicial capacity, acting as a judge, the youth commission member would have to step down for that item, right? So there's certain ones that you may not be able to do, but it'll certainly give you the opportunity, if there's interest there, to allow youth members. And it's not limited to just youth commission members, it's youth members of the community in doing that. So, and then a couple of other just minor changes in that. There are 3 other items that we'll be considering at a later meeting. I was looking at maybe April 18th, but I've seen what that agenda looks like, so it may be the first meeting in May. But it's going to be 2 items that had to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, so we'll have to have a public hearing, and that's the moving the heritage into the Historic Preservation Commission, as well as, I have to remember the other one, changing the Board of Adjustment members. Both of those are in our Title 17, so they had to go through that. And then the Public Safety Advisory Board, we're working with the departments to get a draft out of that. So happy to answer any other questions that you might have, but those are the 6 fun items you get to consider tonight.
Thank you, Brett. Does anybody have any questions or comments on it?
Just a comment to Brett and the staff, because this has been a really big undertaking, and he's done a really great job working with us and questioning us, and it's been a long time coming. So.
Yeah, I ditto that comment, so thank you to your staff.
And one
And
other
to you, Brett.
comment, and I think you explained it, I just wanted to make sure we weren't losing someone that might be interested in being involved. But it sounds like the committees that you have need more members, so it's not like you're gonna be doing away with, someone that really wants to participate.
Yeah, and we did offer up other positions on other boards if someone was affected or if somebody was interested in another board. So I think we've accommodated everybody who's been interested.
And to that point, I think the only ones that are really still active are all the ones that have been disbanded that we no longer can do anymore.
Right.
Right, so no one's on the Clean and Beautiful, but
Yeah.
there was a
Nobody's on-
health trust board. but
nobody's
we
on the
wound that up.
library,
There was
nobody's on the
personnel
golf
policy,
course.
But we've
Yeah.
wound those up,
Right,
and as the
okay.
mayor said, hopefully they'll be interested in serving in other capacities.
Right. Thank you.
And I also, to Lisa's point, is really good, because one of the things that we've been doing is we've been doing the interviews on some of these boards as people have been coming in, if we anticipated, there might be a change, or like the community services. We've talked about that with them and say there may be a change to the name and some of the things. So
Yeah.
we've been kind of working on that a little bit.
Yeah, we've talked to probably almost every board member, I think. So there shouldn't be any surprises. We sent out a letter to them all. So I think we've
Any
communicated.
objections, or were they
No.
all okay with it?
Yeah, everybody was
Good.
fine.
Thank you guys for,
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot of work.
It's about 3 years, something like that. Anyway, okay, any other questions or comments on this? All right, seeing none, then I'll take each one at a time, let's do, consider an approval of an ordinance number 1397.02.18.
Ordinance number 1397.02.18, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending sections 2.28.030, membership, and 2.28.040, administrative structure quorum of Chapter 2.28 Airport Advisory Board of Title II, Administration and Personnel of the City of Casa Grande Municipal Code to change the number of Airport Advisory Board members, establishing the severability of the various sections of the ordinance, and establishing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 1397.02.18 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next item is approval of a resolution number 5397, be the second item in this category.
Ordinance number 5397, resolution number 5397, a resolution of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, declaring as public record that certain document entitled the 2022 Amendments to the City of Casa Grande Building and Technical Administrative Code 2019 edition.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of resolution number 5397.
Second.
I heard of a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, the third item is consider approval of ordinance number 1397.15.24.
Ordinance number 1397.15.24, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, relating to the amendment of Section 113.3 of the City of Casa Grande Building and Technical Administrative Code 2019 edition concerning the term, lengths of the members of the Board of Appeals, adopting the 2022 amendment to the City of Casa Grande Building and Technical Administrative Code 2019 edition by reference, amending Section 15.04.010 of the City of Casa Grande Municipal Code concerning the Casa Grande Building and Technical Administrative Code, establishing the severability of the various sections of the ordinance and establishing an effective date.
Mayor McFarland, I move for approval of ordinance number 1397.15.24 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, item 4 is consider the approval of ordinance number 1397.02.19.
Ordinance number 1397.02.19, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Casa Grande disbanding the Personnel Advisory Board, disbanding the Clean and Beautiful Advisory Board, disbanding the Health Care Benefits Trust Board by deleting Chapter 2.42 of the City of Casa Grande Municipal Code, repealing the resolution that created the City of Casa Grande Health Care Benefits Trust, establishing a procedure for the approval of the minutes from the final board meeting, establishing the severability of the various sections of the ordinance, and establishing an effective date.
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve ordinance number 1397.02.19 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, the fifth item on this list is consider the approval of ordinance number 1397.02.20.
Ordinance number 1397.02.20, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, repealing the Library Advisory Board, the Golf Course Advisory Committee, and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, amending Chapter 2.30 of the City of Casa Grande Municipal Code to establish a Community Service Advisory Board, establishing a procedure for the approval of the minutes for the final board meeting of the disbanded boards, establishing the severability of the various sections of the ordinance, and establishing an effective date.
Mayor McFarland, I move to approve ordinance number 1397.02.20 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, please, Gloria?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, and the last one on our list is consider the approval of ordinance number 1397.02.21.
Ordinance number 1397.02.21, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending sections .010, .020, .030, .050, .070, and .090 of Chapter 2.36, Boards, Committees, and Commissions generally of Title II of the Casa Grande Municipal Code, establishing the severability of the various sections of the ordinance and establishing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 1397.02.21 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. And Brett, is it appropriate if I give Gloria and her staff some direction on this subject? Just,
I will let you know if you need to stop.
Gloria, I just want to make sure we send letters to the affected board members, make sure that we give them the outline of the new boards that they're on. So we need to do that since this is obviously public records, and make sure that we get that information out to them as soon as possible. Not all the boards, because we haven't done all of them, but just the ones here tonight. Thank you. So that was okay? Okay. All right, let's move to item L1. This is our first public hearing. This is on proposal for the amendment of the city tax code. And Gal, is this your baby here? All right. There's no action on this tonight, but it is a public hearing, so.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On January 6, 2020, the Greater Casa Grande Chamber of Commerce presented to Mayor and Council the concept of creating a destination marketing organization for, the concept of creating a destination marketing organization for the purpose of promoting Casa Grande as a tourist destination. That organization will be funded through a proposed increase in hotel motel additional tax rate. Currently the rate is at 2%, and the proposal is to increase that rate by an additional 3%, not to exceed 5% in total. If the city of Casa Grande wants to compete against other cities, we must position ourselves as an attractive place where there would be knowledgeable workers, a place for investors to come in and invest, where there will be enough cultural and sporting events to accommodate the citizens of the city, where we will have adequate technology and innovation to take care of the needs of not only the businesses that we would be attracting, but also the visitors, where there would be diversity and adequate infrastructure for all of the components that would come together to make the city an attractive and successful one in terms of tourism. The DMO, which is the Destination Marketing Organization, as advisory board, will consist of 9 members, including elected city representatives, city employee representative, chamber representative, Downtown Alliance, and 2 to 3 hotel representatives, and 2 to 3 private business representatives, including restaurant, bar, and entertainment. The DMO will engage in print and digital public relations outreach, including but not limited to branding, billboards, printed material, social media presence, public relations, including outbound noteworthy stories to news sources and a visitor website. Funding mechanism, as I indicated earlier, for the DMO would be revenue derived from the increase in hotel motel additional tax rate. That would be bed tax. Bed tax is paid by visitors, and the proceeds would therefore be reinvested to attract new visitors and businesses to the community. The current retail tax rate is 1.8% to the general fund, and 2% bed tax currently allocated to youth and youth services, which would remain. Most jurisdictions in Maricopa County collect a 5% bed tax. Pima County is even higher than what we're proposing. Raising the bed tax by 3% from 2 to 5% in total should provide the desired level of funding, and 100% of the increase would be used in these marketing efforts. Upon approval by the City Council, the city will partner with the Greater Casa Grande Chamber of Commerce under a separate DMO-appointed manager and board to effectively market the city as a preferred destination in Arizona. This is only a public hearing and does not require any action from the board at this time.
All right, thank you. Does council have any questions or comments? Lisa?
The slide that you had, who will be on the board, can you flip to that? Right here. So the chamber is the one that is going to coordinate this advisory board? Okay.
The chamber will.
And I just wanted to, I think it's important, I love the diverse representation, but I do want to make sure that we're looking at, when we talk about marketing, Spanish language, and we do live in Arizona, so I'm really hoping that these representatives, you can get some Spanish language or someone that markets to
Absolutely.
that community to make sure that we're incorporating that into our marketing.
Mayor, members of the council, although Angela's presentation went into kind of the DMO, that is not on the agenda tonight for discussion or consideration. Council will have to consider that separately. The only item agendized tonight, and I realize it's in the presentation, to let people kind of understand, what the plan is for the money if the tax is improved. But tonight is solely for the public hearing on the tax rate increase. Staff will be bringing back an item later concerning.
With the details.
Concerning the actual tax increase, as well as details concerning
The DMO.
the manner of spending.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Now, nobody's going to say
guess
anything.
one.
Mr., be careful. Go ahead.
You gonna slap me or what?
No, Brett might though.
The city will work with the Greater Casa Grande Chamber of Commerce to create a destination.
Ms.
You
Val,
said that we're not talking about that today.
I may not have spoken in the microphone well enough, but tonight is only, and I realize it was in the presentation, but tonight is only about the public hearing on the tax increase. That's the only thing we've put on the agenda, so we'll have the opportunity to discuss those items on the DMO at a later date.
The only thing I was wondering about, having been in business, people are gonna have problems with this.
We'll talk.
Yeah, and
okay
again,
with
for the DMO piece, that's a separate item that council will get the chance to discuss and consider, just not tonight.
Good.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just build on Mr. Wallace's comments, the city staff is working on a services agreement that ultimately the mayor and council would consider at some point. We can, and I'm just trying to give you the context. So, but that will be a future item that will be coming before the mayor and council.
All right, so this is a public hearing, so I will open the floor to any comments or question, or not questions, but comments regarding the proposed bed tax, not the content of the
DMO
presentation. All right, seeing no one, then I will close the public hearing, and we'll move on to the next item. Item L2, this is also a public hearing. This is approval of ordinance number 1178.418. Planning and Development. Jacqueline?
Okay. Good.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council.
That'd be good.
Next item on the agenda is a zone change request from R2 to B3, which is known as Block 36 of the Casa Grande Town Site subdivision. It's bounded by Dry Lake to the north, to the west, 3rd Street to the north, Toltec Road to the east, and 2nd Street to the south. This is currently a city-owned property, and we are requesting this zone change from R2 to B3, which is the downtown zoning. And this allows for a wide range of uses, including commercial and multifamily. So here's the current zoning as is, with the proposed zoning to B3. In reviewing the zone change review criteria, the staff report goes into additional detail, but it looks at the city's general plan. The site is Zone B3, which is an appropriate zoning district for the downtown. One of the goals is to develop a strategy for downtown development, redevelopment, and adaptive reuse, and to encourage the conversion of vacant and or underutilized sites to more intensive urban uses. The rezoning to the B3 will allow the most flexibility with regards to uses, setbacks, and parking. Once a proposal for the development is received, at the time of major site plan, the city will conduct community meetings. At this time, it is just for the rezoning of the sites. Staff met or exceeded the public hearing requirements. I did receive one phone call and one email inquiring about this request, but it was just inquiries about what the request was for. So with that, Planning Commission forward to City Council a favorable recommendation to approve the zone change request from R2 to B3. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Does the council have any questions on this piece? This is a city piece of property across from St. Anthony's. Familiar with that location?
Just a comment, and because it seems like we just changed this to R2, didn't we? In the
No.
last couple of years, we changed it to R2?
No, I don't
No?
think so.
It's been R2 for a while?
Yeah.
Okay, but I know, my only comment is, because of course, I go to the church right across the street, and people park in that lot. You know, of course, we have an issue with parking downtown, and so, but is there a project that's going in here? Is that, I think I read in planning and zoning that there really isn't anything specifically?
Councilmember Fitzgibbons, staff is working, but nothing is solid yet. So we're looking at rezoning these to make them more marketable, really.
Okay. Because B3, you can put multifamily housing
Correct.
in B3.
With a conditional use permit, yes.
Okay.
And it's the most flexible in terms of
You
use.
can put business down below
Right.
and
Do
apartments on
live
top.
Right.
work.
And this was something I think Chicano's Por La Causa was looking at some point. Is that still
They
the
still
case?
are, yeah, they still are.
They are? Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the floor to the public at this point in time. This is on ordinance number 1178.418, converting R2 to B3. Just
Mr.
please
Mayor,
state-
Councilman,
please state
my
your-
name is Jody Gittins. For the record, it's JODYGITTINS. And I represent St. Vincent's. And we just had a couple of questions about the differences between a B1 designation, a B2 designation, and a B3 designation. And does B3 include apartment buildings? What I could find on the website didn't say so. And so there's a genuine concern, being across the street from the church and the school, of what kind of businesses may be going in. And that's our comment. We're just concerned and want more information.
Well, we can have somebody give her the definition of the B3. If you'll give our staff your name, we can certainly do that, or the planning group can do that as well. Or even
Yeah,
if,
you want me to give a quick?
if you want, yeah, unless you'd like it in writing or something. Is a verbal description okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So B1 and B2 is your normal commercial zoning. Those have more setbacks and do not allow for any multifamily or housing development. The B3 does allow for mixed uses, including multifamily development with the conditional use permit. And that would go along with the major site plan that would be heard at Planning Commission.
Okay, so.
So it would be a public hearing for that.
So just be watching for public hearings on the
Yes. So yeah,
planning
once
commission.
a development is proposed, we will be having community meetings for the public.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else?
That's city
That-
property.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Matt, did you have a comment?
That's where all the buses park after the electric light parade, too.
I know that lot.
Yes,
that
so
lot
we'd have
is
to
used.
replan. I
I
mean,
All
know.
right,
but hopefully it's a good use.
yes. Okay, seeing no other comments or questions, then can I get an ordinance number, please, Gloria?
Ordinance number 1178.418. An ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending zoning ordinance 1178 and its subsequent amendments by changing the zoning from multifamily residential R2 to central business B3 on property bounded by 2nd Street on the south, Taltic Street on the east, 3rd Street on the north, and Dry Lake Street on the west, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 1178.418 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Can I please get a roll call vote, Gloria?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, the next item is also a public hearing. We'll consider approval of ordinance number 1178.420. Mr. Horn, is this one yours?
I get the pleasure of this one.
All right.
All right. So Charles Lawrence is requesting a zone change from garden and light industrial I-1 to general industrial I-2 for approximately 82 acres of land, generally located just north of the Central Arizona Commerce Park. You can see it's also located east of Burris. General plan has it in the manufacturing and industry category. The existing zoning, as mentioned, was I-1, which is our garden and light industrial, moving into the I-2. When looking at the zone change criteria, we look at the following criteria. All of it's been covered in your staff report. We'll just hit on a few key items tonight. The first is that the action's consistent with the city's general plan, including goals and policies. Highlighted goal MI5, which is encourage appropriate and responsible industrial development in appropriate locations. It's located just north of the Central Arizona Commerce Park. It's looking to kind of expand into that northern area as part of this, part of the planning of the Central Arizona Commerce Park. There's right now it ends in a cul-de-sac. We've asked the new applicants that are in the north part of that to extend Commerce Drive into this portion of the property, and then Commerce Drive will extend up to Gila Bend Highway most likely, and maybe also out to Burris Road. Second one is a rezoning conforms to the general plan if it proposes land uses, densities, and intensities within the identified uses of the general plan. The requested zoning of I-2 general industrial is appropriate in the manufacturing and industry land use category. And the third, the proposed zone change is necessary and proper at this time to meet the land use needs of the residents of the city. We'll just highlight one. A portion of the site is tentatively planned for an industrial user requiring the zoning district to be I-2. The city's current demand for industrial land, as you all know, is very significant. This rezoning would expand that available area. In regards to notification, we met or exceeded all city requirements. We did not receive any comments. The Planning Commission, on a 7-0 vote, recommends City Council approve the zone change request, DSA 2100243, from garden and light industrial to general industrial with the following conditions, and that's our standard right-of-way condition. Can I answer any questions?
So their proposal is to run Commerce Drive up into there?
Yeah, we've asked, so we do have an applicant that's processing actually on both sides of that right now. The one to the west hasn't been as active recently, but we've informed them that we would like to extend Commerce Drive up. And then the one to the east is actively looking at that site with a major site plan. We expect a submittal soon. So we've discussed it with them. There is actually an access easement there right now, but we'd like to convert that into full right-of-way.
Okay. Because it has access to that West Lawrence Street too, doesn't it?
We haven't determined whether we're going to access that Lawrence Street at this point. The user that's interested in this site hasn't developed the plan that far yet. There is a challenge with rail there, so you would have to go over the rail. It runs right down that property line.
Okay.
So we haven't determined whether it'll go out to Lawrence Street or where it will extend out to Burris Road. But we do think it'll go kind of in between the three houses up on Gila Bend Highway.
Okay. Anyone have any questions in the council? All right, this is a public hearing, so I'll open this ordinance number 1178.420 to the public. Is there anyone here who would like to address the council on this subject?
Kirk McCarville on behalf of Charles Lawrence. Big Charles, Little Charles, Knapp and Spike. My address is 9405
I didn't
North
know that was
Paseo
his first name.
Yeah, they're both named Charles. 9405 North Paseo, Palo Verde, Casa Grande, Arizona. Full disclosure, we don't think we can get access on Lawrence Lane because there's a triple track there for service to the Commerce Park, and the central track is used for storage. So I don't think that's valid.
Okay.
In addition, we don't think we can go to the west because of the canal along Burris Road. It's really, really difficult to get access easements across that canal, and very expensive, and there's no guarantee we could get it done. So therefore, Commerce Drive is really the only viable alternative, and that's why everybody's focused on that.
Okay. Does he have access up to Gila Bend?
Yes, he does.
So he's got this piece of property?
He owns all the frontage on Gila Bend except for those 3 houses.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions of Kirk? Thank you. Anyone else? This is public hearing.
Let me ask a question.
All right, let me close, I'm going to close the public hearing. Mr. Powell, you have a question? You have a question? Go ahead.
Okay. Kirk, is that the, which lot is that? 315 West Main Avenue?
Oh, that's the next one.
That's the next one, Mr. Powell.
Okay. Well, now you know my question when we get to it.
It's not his property, but that's okay. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain an ordinance number, please.
Ordinance number 1178.419, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending zoning ordinance 1178 and its subsequent amendments by changing the zoning from garden and light industrial to general industrial on property generally located north of the Central Arizona Commerce Park and east of Barris Road, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mayor McFarland, I move for approval of ordinance number 1178.419 as presented.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lavender.
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next item is L4, which is another public hearing, and this is ordinance number 1178.420.
Mayor, if it's okay with you, I'd like to do the next 3 together.
Okay.
In one presentation.
Okay. So she's going to do the next 3 altogether.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jacqueline.
So the first request is located at 315 West Main Avenue. This is a zone change request from I-1 to B3. The second one is located at corner of, bounded by Florence Street to the east, 2nd Avenue to the south, top and bottom to the west, and First Ave to the north. And the third one is located along Main Avenue as well to the north, Florence Street to the east, First Ave to the south, and Sackatoon Street to the west. As you can see, the site also has 2 local historic sites, the Casa Grande Hotel and Shaughnessy House. Any proposals that would be requested here would have an appropriate application to the Historic Preservation Commission at that time of development. Staff would like to see these sites incorporated into any redevelopment proposal as an adapted reuse. So here's the existing zoning. Majority of this is I-1 with the exception of the block located on top and bottom in Florence Street. It is both I-1 and R2. And the proposed zoning is to B3. And again, these are city-owned properties as well. I don't remember if I mentioned that again.
Okay.
So as far as looking at the zone change criteria, B3 is an appropriate zoning district within the downtown general plan land use category. There are additional goals outlined in the staff report. However, one of the main goals is D2, to prioritize mixed-use development in and surrounding downtown areas. and to revise the zoning regulations to allow for mixed uses of urban form desired for the downtown core area, and to encourage development of land uses on the city-owned properties adjacent to the Shaughnessy House and Casa Grande Hotel that complement the historic nature of these sites. Again, the rezoning to B3 would allow the most flexibility with regards to uses, setbacks, and parking requirements. And at the time of major site plan, the city will conduct community meetings for these sites as well. Staff met all the public hearing notifications. I did receive, again, a couple inquiries and comments on 2 of the sites. Again, these were just inquiries on what was proposed. So with that, Planning Commission forwarded to City Council recommendation to approve the zone change from I-1 to B3, and I-1 and R2 to B3, and then I-1 to B3 as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Any questions? Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
I just had people ask me questions, but to be clear, there's nothing planned for this right now. We're changing the zoning, so anything that would go on this would be public hearings and go through the entire planning zoning process, correct?
Correct, yeah. We will have, at the time of major site plan, community meetings to get more public input. Major site plans would go to city, or planning commission, and then if anything needs a conditional use permit, that would also go to planning commission, which would be a public hearing.
I know you said that, but I just wanted to be clear for everyone because people were questioning what's going in. It's just, nothing's planned yet, but there'll be plenty of time to have input on that when it does happen.
Yes.
Do you know what the B3 is going to be?
Again, we're, these are.
It's a business, but I just was
It's the
curious.
downtown,
It's a central
business.
downtown?
Yes.
Okay, so this isn't on Main Avenue?
It is, but it's
Yes.
south of downtown.
It's in the downtown zoning area.
Downtown's right here.
Downtown, general plan.
Across the tracks.
Right.
Those other tracks.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just to give the mayor and council a bit of a context, these are the lots that the city has assembled that had the industrial type users that we've cleaned up and ultimately are looking to put a zoning that would allow for a mixed use opportunities for redevelopment. It was known, we did the Life on Main project several years ago, and this is really just building in a zoning category that would allow for some level of development to occur there.
It just gives us more flexibility. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Going back to the one on B3, do you know what they're going to do with that?
Nothing's been proposed yet, Mr.
Pal, nothing has been formally proposed at this
We've
point
got
in
a
time.
property that I hate to see somebody come in and doing junky stuff
Right.
on Main Avenue, so that's my concern is what they're going to do. I'd like to know that before we vote on it.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, and Councilmember Powell, I'd like to remind you, as Mr. Raines was saying, the city owns these properties, so in order for anyone to develop it other than you, you'll have to sell that property to them. So you'll have a lot more control over what goes in here, because you'll have to determine what goes in. It's your property. So it's a little different than a rezoning of a private property where you may have those questions, but you will have a lot more control on these properties because you own them.
Thank you.
All right, this is a public hearing, so I'll open.
And Mr. Mayor, just to make clear that we're having 3 separate public hearings, even though she did one
Okay.
development, because that's how the property was noticed.
All
So
right.
we'll have to have
So this will
each
be a
one.
public hearing for ordinance, for item L4, ordinance number 1178.420. The floor is open. Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing for L4 and then call for an ordinance number.
Ordinance number 1178.420, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending zoning ordinance 1178 and its subsequent amendments by changing the zoning from garden and light industrial to central business on property located at 315 West Main Avenue, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 1178.420 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
I guess.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, the next item is L5, again, a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing to item L5, which is ordinance number 1178.421. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing, and Gloria, I'll call for an ordinance number, please, on L5.
Ordinance number 1178.421, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending zoning ordinance 1178 and its subsequent amendments by changing the zoning from garden and light industrial to central business on property located at 201 West Main Avenue, 209 West Main Avenue, 12 South Sackatone Street, 115 West Main Avenue, and 107 West Main Avenue, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 1178.421 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, the last item is L6, again, a public hearing, so I'll open the floor to the public. This is on ordinance number 1178.422. Is there anyone here to speak on this item L6? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing, and I'll call for an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 1178.422, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, amending zoning ordinance 1178 and its subsequent amendments by changing the zoning from garden and light industrial to central business on properties located at 201 West Main Avenue, 209 West Main Avenue, 12 South Sackatone Street, 115 West Main Avenue, and 107 West Main Avenue, Casa Grande, Arizona.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 1178.422 as presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Gloria, can I please get a roll call vote on item L6?
Councilmember Lavender,
Yes.
Councilmember Huddleston,
Yes.
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Powell,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Thank you, Jackie. All right, that concludes most of tonight's business. We do have an executive session, but the next item on the agenda, I move the reports up here so that I know you all wait with bated breath for the council's report. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Lavender.
I just wanted to compliment the mayor and the city staff for an outstanding presentation of the state of the city. Just a couple of events coming up on March 29th. For those that are interested, there were 2 finalists for the Casa Grande Elementary Superintendent. We'll be doing a community forum at 6 o'clock. April 6th is the set date for the Cardinals football camp for 100 female athletes. So if people in the community are interested, they can contact me. And Councilmember Fitzgibbons and I today had the privilege of choosing 45 Pinal County seniors to receive the Cesar Chavez Scholarship for this year. And the event will be on April 22nd at 7 o'clock at the Neon Sign Park for those who would like to come out and see these outstanding students. We read through all their applications today, and this is a deep group of talented students.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. Donna?
There's lots of stuff that's been going on. I just wanted to congratulate everybody. Pinal County Fair was this past weekend, and it was nice to see so many pictures of families going back and forth and enjoying that. Also, I wanted to just do a shout out and congratulate Lieutenant Brian Ramirez, who completed the FBI Academy, only one of 3 in our department's history, I believe, that has done that. So congratulations to him. And that's it.
Matt?
Thanks, Mayor. I've got just a couple things. Also to the fair, it's a great family event. I spent a lot of good times out there, and good luck to everyone who does it now. It's a lot of fun. A lot of work for all the family, let me tell you. But on the 16th of April will be the Day of Shredding event sponsored by First American Credit Union, 1001 North Pinal Avenue. And we will also have the city doing the e-cycle program there. So you can bring electronics, you can bring papers to be shredded, and we can help you with that drive-through event. And the Youth Commission is very excited to be doing that. Also want to thank the PIO department for putting together all the videos for us and making us look really good. We appreciate it. They did a lot of editing for that, so thank you guys. And another interesting item of note is that our state senator, TJ Shope, is trying to shepherd a bill through to get $400 million to widen the I-10 between Casa Grande and Chandler. So anything we can do to help that, I mean, I know we all want it, we all need it, just not here, but the entire state and southern Arizona. So it's moving slowly, but it's moving, so I'm happy to report that. That's all I have.
Mr. Powell?
I made a trip to Parker on Wednesday, and we went down there to inform them about floodwater harvesting, and it turned out really well. The Crits is what they're called, and they're the Colorado River Indian tribes. There's 4 of them, and they control the water rights on 115 miles of the Colorado River. And we were very happy. I've got a friend there that's Native American, and right now there's on the river, the tribes, there's 29 tribes in the 7 basin area that need water. And the crisis is really severe. Everything you read right now about what's going on with water and where it is, and if it'd be possible, I'd like to present something, maybe the next meeting or something, about where we are on that. I know Fred, he told me when I butted in and was selling that stuff, he said it's time for that. He said that was something that one time was thought about as possible, but not. He said now is the time we need to act on it. So that was very influential. Man is the water guru right now. So I've got some other things I'd like to share or spend maybe 15 minutes or something, if that would be possible. But we're really looking at some severe times and the water that's not available and those type of things. It's very serious. And I know the old futurist said the two biggest ghost towns in America will eventually be Phoenix and Las Vegas, because they're so dry. And that's what's happening from California. All these states are just, they're running out of water. They don't have the water. There's a lot of issues going on, and some of the ones are saying you've only got about 1.5 years to get it right, or you're going to be even worse. So I would like to at least explain some of the things that are going on so you'd be more informed on it. That'd be okay? Lisa, would that be okay?
Lisa?
Don't ask me, ask him. So, yeah, no, as far as staff, thank you for everything with the state of the city. Mayor, great job on that and the videos. That was nice. It was nice, because it was at capacity, I believe, at the recreation center, but then a lot of people were able to view it online, which is really nice, too. Yeah, and still can. So that was great. The Homeless Coalition, of course, we meet monthly, and those meetings get more and more just informative, and there's so much going on in that hour and a half of meetings of all the different activities that are going on. I just wanted to highlight a couple. You know, we've talked about this Laundry Love program, and for those of you that aren't familiar, there's, I think, 6 or 7 churches that do provide laundry for whoever needs it twice a month. And just to give you an idea, in January, there were 96 people served with 513 loads of laundry. In February, 83 people with 434 loads of laundry. It costs the churches about $800 every time they do this. You know, each load, I think they said, is like $3.50 a load now, so it's pretty expensive. So I just wanted to thank those churches that participate. The LDS church is the one that's going to be coordinating, paying for this upcoming one on March 30th, and it's at the laundromat at the old Pep Boys. That's where it is. So just want to thank them. The other thing was the veteran, the HOHP is also involved in the Homeless Coalition, and many of you know their location was sold downtown, and so they're there waiting for a new home. They've been talking to some people and trying to get some property for them to move. So I really hope the community, whoever's out there, can really work with them and try to get the Veterans Center a new home in Casa Grande. They do so much for our community, and I know they're just eagerly waiting to see if something happens for them. So the Faith Alliance, we had the mayor's luncheon. So Mayor, thank you so much for coming and participating. I think all the pastors, not all, but a nice number of pastors came and participated, and it was nice for the mayor to give them an update on what's going on in this city and how it impacts the churches, which is a huge impact. As more and more people come to the community, you know, they need to know how they're going to get involved. They also had a blood drive this past weekend, and we all know the demand for blood right now is huge demand, so they were able to I think they had 95 donors on Saturday participate. So thank you to the Faith Alliance and all of those who donated blood. That's it.
All right. Bob?
No report, Mayor.
All right.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. Feeling better?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Well,
I'm getting there.
hang in there.
Thank you.
So yeah, lots of things going on. I mean, even last week, we had the Pinal Partnership Breakfast on Friday. Also had the Arizona Mayor's Education Roundtable on Friday. And as the co-chair, or not the co-chair, but vice chair of the roundtable, the hot topic of the day is attainable housing. And it's in every conversation that I'm in anymore. Whether it's with GPAC, we got a report from Elliot Pollack on last week when I had my GPAC board meeting, and Elliot Pollack painted a pretty dark picture in terms of affordable, or I should say attainable. He called it affordable, but a lot of people want to call it attainable. But basically, from 2020 to 2021, the median house price in the Phoenix market, now this is just the Phoenix market, and if you took all the jobs, nurses, police, firefighters, high school, a chef, middle school teachers, and all the way to retail. And the first, in 2020, there was some green, and green says that you can afford a median priced house. So the first 2 columns, so nurses and police, but the next one, firefighters, down to chefs, they were like, they could rent 1-bedroom places to stay. And everybody else couldn't afford it. Median income, or median priced home. In 2021, the first 2 columns, which is nurse and police, only in 3 cities could you afford to buy a median house price. And that's if you're a nurse. If the rest of them are either yellow, orange, or red, just in 1 year. So the impact of the economy, the inflation, lack of housing, which is driving up the housing costs and the price of housing, besides the fact that builders can't get materials to build them, is really creating a major problem. And now it's on GPEC's radar because it's affecting their work in economic development. So just so you know, there's lots to talk about it. Even the Mayor's Education Roundtable, the topic was affordable housing. So it's all over the place. On the happier note, We did have a fundraiser for the Valley Humane Society on Saturday, very successful. They raised a lot of money for the animals. And then this week, I did have a PRT meeting last week and one this week. So as the chairman of the PRTA, I had to make sure that we covered all of the options, because this is coming fast and pretty furious. And we'll get you additional information on that as it comes available, which should be shortly. And we'll also get that information out to the public too, because we need to build a public information piece on that. Let's see, what else have I got? It's probably enough. There's a lot going on. We do have the Little League kickoff this Saturday. So the Little League kicks off on Saturday. We've got a project launch with Pinal County. It's a geospatial project, and then some meetings on Copper Mountain this week. So still a lot going on. Expect things to continue. I did some forecasting on population growth, and my numbers, I think, were conservative. And in the next 10 years, the number is between 97 and 104,000 by 2033, something like that. And that's conservative. So anyway, things we need to work on and reasons why we need geobonds and all that other good stuff. 2033, sorry.
No, 33,
Yeah,
okay.
10 years. So that's all I have. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, everybody. I need a motion to move into, yes? Okay. Motion to move in exec session.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll stand adjourned until we clear the room.